12th of October 2024 at 12:59 p.m. here in Snohomish, Washington, United States of America. Welcome once again to our cosmic journey. It's the Devon Design Podcast, highlighting the story of how two regular old six-pack Joes made the world's best astrology software. I'm the designer, Jake. He is the engineer, Trey. Hello, Trey.
Hello, Jake.
I just decided
What is
to
what
bring
is
back,
what's
it's
a
the
regular
election
old
season.
six-pack person?
It's the election season, and so I decided to
Mm.
bring out back something back from the 2008 election. If I remember the John McCain, Sarah Palin, they were talking about old
Oh,
six-pack Joes.
yeah. I totally forgot about that.
Or
Yeah.
Plumber,
I don't
wasn't
know. I
there
don't know
like
that I
Joe the
self-identify as a
Plumber?
six. Yeah, Joe the plumber. That's right. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
and as it turns out, Joe the Plumber, much like anyone else who becomes instantly famous without any background check, became like instantly racist, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
This
there was something
happens.
really problematic about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that. Like it came
yeah,
out like pretty briefly that, he's a human.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. I
yeah.
mean, you already
So
had
there was
Sarah
something
Palin who
probably
was having her
problematic.
moment, and then Six Pack
Yeah.
Joe was riding on the coattails of Sarah Palin. It was a different era. It was a more innocent time, we'd like to say. Um, so, welcome to the podcast here on a Saturday. Mr. Henry and I don't think you would have remembered this last week. We did the episode last week very early. And the reason why is because immediately after the episode and immediately after editing it and posting it, we got in a car, got on a tram to a plane to a location, what I'm going to call the side quest in Europe. So we ended up landing in Spain. So we were in Spain until Thursday, flew back on Thursday. So it's been a lot of the side quests. How are you feeling after said side quest, Mr. Henry?
I'm pretty jet lagged still. Like it's always for me, it's always easier coming this direction than it is going that direction.
Yeah.
So I was definitely more jet lagged when we were in Barcelona, but it was also we were only there for like was it like 6 days maybe or something or
No,
5 days?
it was less. It was, I think we arrived on the Sunday and left on Thursday. So
Yeah,
5 days, 4.5
yeah,
days.
4.5 days or something. So it was like just enough time to kind of like get a little bit out of kilter. And then of course, as the viewer knows, I am a big fan of a video game called No Man's Sky, which we also call spaceships. And so I played spaceships until 2 o'clock in the morning last night. So
You're like,
I didn't wake up
no.
until yeah, I also didn't wake up until fairly late this morning. And Jake had already gone to the library, so Jake is at the library.
As you can tell, you may have seen this from prior episodes. I believe the last time that Trey and I were separated
Yeah.
like this was episode 50. I don't know. Is my memory okay? That's the episode right up there. We'll find out here in a little bit. Episode today, by the way, is called Aspect-ations, as in like expectations, but aspects. So we're tampering aspectations today. Uh, it's Trey's check-in.
I love
He's
that.
going to talk about moving through time, which is funny because we just talked about flying to and from Barcelona, talking about moving through time
Oh yeah.
and the design aspect work, and then of course a little thank you. But of course, before we get to any meaningful work, we always have to start with the check-in question. Mr. Henry, it is to you.
Yes. So today's check-in question is if you could master a skill for one day, so you just get this mastery level uh, 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 level up in a skill, could be any one skill, but you only get it for one day. What would it be, and what would you do with it?
I would commune with the dead. And the reason why is not for
Necromancy.
necromancy. I was My original
Okay.
answer was going to be raise the dead, but I thought that would be too problematic because also I think like what happens to the dead after you're done? I don't know. So it's either raise the dead and hopefully not let the power go to your head and have people be like, "Wait, I've read about this before. Who else raised the dead?" And like I didn't want that level of like problematicness, but I thought at least communing with the dead would be nice.
Hmm.
Because personal satisfaction, obviously, but then also I get to be the person to help other people commune with the dead. And I would love to see how many people thought I was crazy versus correct. And I thought that would be a great little experiment to see. Like, oh, it looked like he had a psychotic break for a day. Like, no, 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 I could commune with the dead. You're like, no, no, and then for the rest of my life, everyone would be like, was it a psychotic break or could he commune actually with the dead? No one can really know. It'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like Contact. Did she go or didn't she go? Who knows? It's part of the mystery.
I love you brought up Contact of all things. There is that scene in that movie there, which I think absolutely ruins the movie, which is about like how much static is on her camera. I hate that. If
So dumb.
so dumb. Anyways, other than that, that movie
Ugh.
is we can all agree flawless. What about you, Mr. Henry? What do you think? What would you do for a day?
Yeah, my aspirations were much more mundane.
Well, I had a first one,
Which now
which was much more mundane, but yeah, I'll tell you that
okay,
later.
because
What was
now that
yours?
I've heard like mastering necromancy for a day, I'm like, wow, I should have really. But anyway, I love fishing, and I've spent a sort of like I've fished when I was a kid with my dad, like river fishing in Reno for like little tiny trout and whatnot. And occasionally I get lucky. But I think it would be really nice to have mastery of fishing for a day because even if I couldn't keep it, at least I would know what it felt like to like actually be good at fishing and be like, you know, we did a fishing trip in I think it was Montana, which you got for us, I
Yeah,
think. Um,
a long time ago.
and yeah, and the person who was the like tour guide basically for this like fishing trip was so good. He knew every spot, everything that you're supposed to do, like the bait to use, what fish are here, like every single thing. And we just caught all of these fish. We had to throw them all back because it was catch and release only. But it was so satisfying. And I was just like, it would just be really nice to like be able to have that level of mastery of fishing for one time and not
Yeah,
just go out and then come back with no fish, which is what happens 9 times out of 10.
yeah, I like that. I mean, you can feel a sense of that mastery through somebody else. The
Yeah.
first mundane thing that came to my mind was being able to fix any car and just going around being like, I'm just gonna fix cars all day.
Yeah,
I thought that'd
yeah.
be
It's
fun.
also really satisfying. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You were gonna
All
say
right, good
something, I
answers.
interrupted you.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say that like there's a difference between like experiencing it vicariously through somebody else being a master fisher, but like being able to be that master fisher for yourself so that you can
Be
feel it. Yeah.
be the master fisher that you believe yourself to be. I think that's the lesson that we can all take away from today. All right, good checking question, everybody. Mr. Henry, you are up. You are going to talk about moving through time, not the metaphorical version, but actual moving through time in the application. Do you want to talk a little bit about what this is?
Yeah, we had a last iteration we showed the product working again, and I showed a fair number of things, but one of the things that we didn't show was fluidly moving through time because that was not yet fully fixed, and also the tests weren't done. So I'm going to briefly also demo the tests, and then yeah, and we'll show move through time. So I'm just going to jump right in there. Uh, so if we just go to the chart for now, if you remember from ages ago, you can move through time by using the console, but the console also shows you which hotkeys to use. So, like, I can move forward a month via the console, or I can just hit 2 on my keyboard to do the exact same thing. And so it goes from 5 to go forward by second, and then forward by minute with 4, forward by day with 3, forward by month with 2, and forward by year with 1. And then you can hit N to go to the current time. So that is all. And then you can hold Shift to do the exact same increments, just backwards and forwards. So yeah, move through time back in the product.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Very exciting.
Um,
Um,
yes, I was going to say that there was one other feature that we will eventually do, and we will allow the number six. I'll go to two up for this one.
oh,
We're
yeah,
going to
yeah,
allow
yeah,
the number six to be the move through time, but it was going to be the custom move through time. So you get to
yeah.
choose how many years or days or whatever. And it's because I think I was watching a YouTube video and someone said, like, I want to move through time 8 years at a time. And I was like,
Yeah.
They were
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
some
yeah.
kind of weird technique, and I can't remember what it was. And I was like, huh, it's a good
Well, no,
idea.
because we yeah, I think we should actually unpack that one because we have that ticket open for that. But I actually think that it might be I think there are certain things that you want to do like a completely custom time, but I think in some cases you might just want to be like the next or like the time window for a return of a particular planet. So like, I want to go by, like 27 point whatever days for the moon, for example. And so like maybe you could just like pick which planet you want to like
That'd be
increment by.
great.
Yeah.
Just be like,
Um,
keep doing, yeah, lunar returns or solar returns or,
right. Yeah. Or
ah,
it would get you close. Yeah, get you close. Anyway, so yeah, that's yeah one thing. Okay, so I also want to demo the test too.
oh, wow.
So
Okay,
thinking
let's
about it.
get to the test.
Yeah, so we can I basically like a bunch of tests had to be rewritten. And so now we have 173 tests which are passing. For those that don't know, this is a combination of unit tests and functional tests. They're not really end-to-end tests. We do have end-to-end tests, but they actually run in a different test framework. But these are mostly like specifically testing particular bits of functionality in the code. And these kinds of tests are really great for helping you when you're doing like your refactoring code, or these will also be especially important when other developers come onto the project, because as you're working on something, the ability to run tests and kind of get a little bit of a feel for like, okay, I probably didn't break other stuff is really is extremely useful. There is one thing that I wanted to talk briefly about here, which is these doc tests, because this is another like amazing thing about the platform that we're using. Although this is a feature in other platforms as well, where you can write documentation and then you can actually run the tests that the documentation contains. So let me show what this looks like here really quick. So here we have the get positions function, which calls swef, does swef ephemeris. And there's a couple of examples here. So it's just like, this, and these are just documentation examples. So when you are looking at the documentation for this function, it'll show you these things. But as you can see, it's basically using like a terminal command, and it's saying like, okay, this is the response that you're going to get. And these actually get run as tests. And the cool thing about that is that if this signature function changes or something along those lines and the documentation doesn't update, then these tests will fail. So this is a nice way of keeping the documentation up to date with the functions, which is something that can get out of date very quickly. And anybody who's worked on a large code base for a long period of time will know that function docs often drift from the actual functions themselves over
Yeah,
time. And so this is like a nice way of basically being able to prevent that, or at least have a sort of like extra check for it. Anyway, I
yeah.
just think that's a cool thing. So yeah, so that's
The great
basically
thing
it.
also is that people like astrologers such as Chris Brennan, for example, will go into great detail within their books of demonstrating a concept, say spear bearing bodyguards, for example. And then they will say, here are some charts that exemplify these things. And then what we can do, because these astrologers have done such a great job collecting this data for us, we can just manifest that into our tests as well, and to say,
Yes.
if and when we start saying like, does this chart have spear bearing bodyguards, we can put in charts that we know are yes, according to professional astrologers, know that are no's, and then run the doc test, same old thing. And we have a other ticket to basically get all of those examples into that. Now that I'm thinking about that, I should probably write that in the design documentation. Like what tests, like what documentation do I run across that validates these things? It's not a bad idea. You can stick
Yeah,
it in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good one too for when we find things where the app breaks or the app doesn't behave correctly in specific scenarios. So like I'm thinking about when we had that bug. Maybe you can reference the video, but
We'll find
we had
out.
a bug. We had the we had the bug where all of the planets were getting duplicated,
Oh
and
yes.
it only happened when you had a very specific circumstance, which was like a set of two or more in a grouping, which ran into a set of two or more in another grouping. And so being able to uh, take that like time for that chart and the perspective for that ring in the chart and codifying that into a test, which we did in that case. But I just instead of instead of doing like a doc test with that specific like date, time, location, whatever, I just took the specific like result of the chart. But yeah, I like that idea of being able to like not regress functionality within the product by using actual charts
Yeah,
for features for things that we know should work.
yeah, love it.
Yeah, Jake Zukowski, designer of Cosmic. Can you explain to us what design did during this iteration?
Why, as I can. Trey Henry, engineer of Cosmic. But we had like two or three takes on that. I don't know why that was so funny to us. The design work that I have been doing has been, I'm not incredibly happy with how aspects, those connections between points or planets, are represented in classic astrology software. And I think finally got to a point where I feel relatively good about what we're going to do for aspects. And I'd like to show you a little bit of that. You're seeing the what I call lovingly the Duplo chart. This chart has never been rendered and will never be rendered in the product at all, mostly because it looks awful compared to what Trey has made. But there is one thing that I wanted to show you that is in the center here, and it is this the best thing that I can say for like how we're going to show aspects. Maybe what we can do is like some shadow lines in the background just to give some indication that these are aspects in the background. But for the most part, what we will show is some grouping of aspects that will tell you information about the either the quality of the aspect or whether it is separating or applying. And the idea here is because this is professional astrology software, you can look here and understand these numbers are not right. They're very fake. But you could take a look here and say, like, okay, I see that there are two aspects here, three aspects there. You can easily see this stuff, especially if you are doing this by whole sign. Why not just allow for a grouping here? And if I click on this two separating or three applying, then I can look at all of the aspects that are separating or applying. And this doesn't necessarily have to just be separating or applying. I said it could also be the quality of the aspect. So we could say there are hard aspects or soft aspects. Again, I think most professional astrologers know the difference between hard aspects and soft aspects. It's the things that are hard to see that I think we would show, like separating and applying. And when you go to look at it, these are the kind of single cards, or they're the instances of aspects that would exist on a ring. We've just started adding a little bit more detail now, separating or applying by a distance. What is the time until it applies or the time since it's separated, things like that. So this had separated 3 degrees 52 minutes by three, and that was an hour 23. That might not be the correct math, but just go with me on this one. You show it on a list, and then you can sort and filter and group by a list of aspects. Then it would look real great and be amazing. Mr. Henry, what do you think about all of this stuff?
Yeah, I love it. We've talked a lot about the I maybe we have talked a lot about. I don't know how often we've talked about it on the show, but I think we have talked about it on the show, which is what we call the spaghetti bowl,
Yeah,
which is the sort of like the classic, like drawing just a crap ton of lines in the center of a chart, which is both not super useful and also
remediary.
yeah, it's a little it's like a it's yeah it's
It's remedial, I
it's
should
just
say.
messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
It's
messy.
messy, it's remedial, and I guess
Yeah,
maybe what you're supposed to do is like look at this and get a sense of something.
yeah.
No time have we talked to a professional astrologer and they have, first of all, we've never seen it used in practice. And if it was seen in practice, I would ask about it, and I'm sure the answer would be something to the effect of, "Yeah, I just don't change it. It's like the default setting out of the box." I don't think it's a good setting, honestly. And so
Yeah, yeah, and
providing
I
something
tried
that's a
to
little bit better.
Yeah,
It's
I tried
nice.
to help that a little bit in Urania by like thickening lines that are closer to partile, and then also, um, uh, you can select things and then just see those aspects, and we'll have that in Cosmic as well. But yeah, this idea that it's like you just show this like massive chunk of like lines in the middle, not super great. Um,
No.
and so I like this because even though when you've worked with charts for a little while, you should be able to just really eyeball it. It's usually pretty straightforward to eyeball. The You still sometimes miss things. Like I sometimes miss things. So I'll be looking at a chart and then I'll maybe miss that there's like an applying um, opposition, let's say, or something like that. And then if you have this kind of like roll up in the middle, and then you can go into the roll up and you can kind of like see what's there without losing your context. I think that's going to be like, yeah, really, just really awesome. And you'll also see this in the like detail bar
Yeah,
as well. So
I didn't show that, but
yeah,
that's essentially what happens is you click on those or tap on those, and then you go to a detail view with this stuff.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm excited about it. I think it's gonna
Me
be cool.
too. I know it's sunny outside, and I know that we both want to finish up work so that we can go enjoy the sun. Mr. Henry, what should the viewer do with themselves today on this glorious, beautiful sunny day here in the Pacific Northwest?
Go fishing.
Talk to the dead? Sure. You could, you know what? Why don't you go out there, get your fishing
Actually,
pole, get your, sorry, what's that?
no, I like the talk to that. We're in October. We're getting to spooky season. We're heading to Samhain or Samhain or however you want to pronounce it. It's a good time to set up your ancestor altar
Yeah.
and
Set up
uh,
your
and
ancestor altar.
and honor the
Go
dead.
honor the dead, commune with the dead. Make sure that it's been 366 days, though, since they've died, because you don't want to upset them otherwise. Be well, take care, have yourself a lovely weekend, lovely Saturday, or whatever day you watch this video. We love you very much. We're going to see you next week. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.